Greg just said don't go on too long, so I'll try and make this a bit snappy. Robin's not joking, it's quite intimidating looking at all you guys in this massive room. The only thing probably more intimidating is having to talk to you guys about AI. Like, who hasn't heard enough about AI already over the last 2 days? You're right, there's some hands up, yeah, good. But this is really about, what are you seeing? Sorry, I've got to make sure you're seeing the right thing. I'm not going to teach you about AI, that's not what I do, but what I am going to try and do is give you some tips or tricks, maybe to help give you the best chance of surviving the Gen AI wave. So I'm not an AI guy, and so what I do when I don't know too much about things, I go to mum and dad and say, Mum, Dad, I've got to do a presentation about AI, and they go, ooh, good luck. But we were talking about it over the weekend, and we kind of came to the analogy that this is just another transition in technology. We were talking about when the internet first came home. This in the mid-90s after school one day, and we're remembering that Dad brought home the CD from Extra, who were the ISP at the time. We loaded it into the computer, and all of a sudden we had the internet, and it was great, but we didn't know what to do with it. There was no search engines, there was no social media, it was literally the internet, and you had to figure out what to do with it. I actually remember the first website I went to. This is work safe, I promise. And I was a teenager, I thought I was cool, so I went to Nike.com and spent 5 minutes looking on that website. It probably took 4 minutes to load, but that was about the extent of what the internet was back then. You now look at it, 20 years later, and you go, wow. I think for us, generative AI is probably going to be similar, maybe just a little bit faster. So I think there's some things that we can learn from that. So I've got 6 topics, 6 themes, 6 suggestions, I guess, that can help us in the area. The first one is to experiment, and experiment again. One of the things we do at InterSystems is we generate ideas from within. So every year we poll the company and say who's got a great idea that we can leverage. So this year we started with 194 ideas. We then build small teams of 5 or 6 that help to solution some of those. They then get presented back to a smaller subgroup, and we take 3 finalists through to our executive. And it's a Shark Tank meets American Idol type situation where we find a winner. This year the winner was to help on our service desk when customers log an issue. The Gen AI goes through all of our documentation, all of our previous tickets, and actually provides suggestions back to the customer and our service desk reps about what may be the issue. So we found that by experimenting. Not all experiments are good. I've got a mate who's got a startup that does, I said, what do you do, mate? He said, you can go to my site, put in how you're feeling, and it will create a 15-second song for you. So I did that, and it does what it says, but it's not that useful. So experiment both for the good things and the bad things. It's a great way to learn. The second one, it's quite small, the writing over there, is really about trying to find things that are valuable for both the organisation and the users. Traditionally, organisations look at software like whether it's a CRM system or a timesheet system, which is really focused around helping the business. In the AI wave, we're going to need to find ways that really help the user. And I think the one that gets talked about a lot is how we can do ambient listening to turn some of those things into notes so that we can then save the pajama time for the clinician at the end of the day. So really trying to find ways that the user experience can really be improved. Oh, there we go. The third one is to really rethink the deployment model and the governance framework. I heard Lara Hopley talk on Monday night about how we need to move as a sector to more continuous delivery. Continuous delivery in healthcare, that's an interesting one. I think probably the gold standard is if you're releasing software every 6 to 8 weeks, you're in a good spot. A lot of systems are years and years and years between drinks. Gen AI, we don't really have that luxury. Things are moving so fast that we actually have to rethink how we're doing things. One of the more insightful speeches I've heard this year on the power of AI was at the 2ANZ conference up in Auckland, Minister Judith Collins spoke there, and she basically told the room, just get on with it. And that was, she did it in her way. That was refreshing for me, because she's obviously very busy, but she also looks after the GCSB, cybersecurity. And if she should know what the threats are, and she's saying get on and do it, I think we should take something from that. Number 4, if we click one more time. Number 4 is really around ethical behaviour. You could probably have a whole conference on the ethics of AI and what that means for healthcare. What we have done at InterSystems is we've published our ethics on our website. You can see them up there on the board, and we think it's really important to be open and transparent about that. There's a couple of key ones on there. The top one really is around augmenting human potential, not replacing it, which is key. And then the bottom one, and that's kind of why we publish them, is so that we can be held accountable. When especially with the healthcare data that we deal with these days, if you're not doing things the right way, we want to be held accountable so people can go, no, that's not the right way to do things. This is the most important one to me, and this is to focus on your data. And it's a challenge at the moment because everyone is so constrained. So the chances of getting the sector to do large projects at the moment is good luck. But there are opportunities to do things to get ready for when the tap does get turned back on. We've recently done a large project in Auckland where we've migrated over 20 million data elements into a new system. That system, the old system, was 25, 26 years old. These days with standards, we've got a really good way to make sure that we don't create bad data, but there's still a massive tail that's been created over the years. So now is a really great opportunity to make sure that data is cleaned up and ready so that when these projects do become available, we're ready to go. So there's a nice slide here. Again, I'm not going to teach you about AI, but there's a nice slide that says if you put bad data into a good model, you will get bad results. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure that one out. And likewise, they say if you put good data in, you'll get good results. What I do want to do, though, is challenge you guys and give you a little bit of food for thought. Sometimes finding a needle in a haystack can be quite difficult. I've heard a colleague talk about this from an AI perspective and say, actually, sometimes more hay makes it easier to find the needle when it comes to healthcare. So have a think about that, challenge me, come back and tell me at the booth and go, no, you're an idiot, that makes no sense at all. But the more data we can have, the more clean data we can have, the chance of finding that issue, that thing that's really important to that patient, is actually going to become easier, not harder. And then the last one, click, go, is to really focus on partnership. I talked at the start about my personal journey of transition, but we've also gone through this as a company. We go back further to the left than client server. We've been around 45, 46 years, and the things that you learn through each of those transitions are actually applicable to Gen AI as well. So you've got to focus on having the software that's already ready so that you're good to go. And I'll put that back to our AI principles here that we shared earlier. That's a really important thing in terms of building partnerships. I think you learn most from your partners when things aren't going well rather than when things are going well. Trying to find trusted partners in this AI space is going to be one of the keys to getting value delivered. And last thing, I wasn't going to teach you about AI, which is good, but there are some really good resources up here on the screens. These are not product pitches or placements, but especially Don's. Don goes through, he works for us, he goes through almost classroom type learning around AI right from the start. So grab take a photo of the QR code if you want. Really good resources that if you come out of digital health, we can go, shit, everyone talked about AI, but I'm a bit too embarrassed or a bit too nervous to ask what it's all about or where the starting point is, go on there, have a look at it. It's really user-friendly. I've learned a lot from it, and yeah, should be some good stuff. So conscious that it's afternoon tea time, I think, so thanks for hanging in there, and good luck for the rest of the conference.